Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the exciting games coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and all new gen hardware as it's being revealed. I'm Daemon Hatfield. As always, I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Happy holidays, Daemon.
Happy holidays to you. An awesome shirt, by the way. And
thank you.
Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Happy holidays as well.
And we arrive at our final episode of the year, so this is a good time before we take a little bit of a holiday break to look ahead into the new year and at all the exciting new gen, current gen games that are coming to just PS5 and Xbox Series X next year, PC as well. But none of the games we've gathered here are coming to PS4 or Xbox One or Nintendo Switch. These are all just current gen games that we think are worth putting on your radar and paying attention to in the new year. So, kicking things off with games that have release dates and going in chronological order. Tekken 8 is sort of the first one that stands out. That's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on January 26th. That's my birthday. Our final preview that was recently published is very positive on this game. The previewer said, from the word go, you'll notice how incredible everything looks to the point that certain transitions between cinematics and gameplay are sometimes hard to spot. So there's almost no discernible difference between cinematics and gameplay here. And then it has this new Super Ghost AI system, which sounds super impressive. It creates an AI ghost of you, your character, and it analyzes the way you play in real time while you're playing against the AI version of yourself. And our previewer said what impressed him the most was how fast the ghosts learn, that it will greatly resemble you and your playstyle after just a few games, and it literally learns on the fly. He interviewed Harada-san, which is the sort of head of Tekken. Behind this whole series, Harada speculated that Tekken 8's ghost might be the highest level AI available in any fighting game. So, definitely very cool. Max, I think you were saying earlier that sort of the Tekken series in the fighting game realm has kind of always been known for its visual spectacle. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like it. It wasn't a launch title for the first PlayStation, but I always kind of remember it being around. I think the first arcade port came to PlayStation 1 around the time the PlayStation 1 came to the States. And there's always been an installment to kind of go with the latest console generation, occasionally more than one. And it's always, it's like the first really, someone's gonna get mad at me, some Virtua Fighter fan, sorry. It's one of the first really notable 3D fighters, and it really, the fact that this is running on Unreal 5, there's a lot to look at here. There's a lot of stuff happening on screen. It's really visually impressive. Obviously, games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are no slouch, but I feel like those come from a pixelated background a million years ago, and Tekken's always been, I feel like it's always been, very polygonal, very 3D focused, and also, heavy emphasis on some completely ridiculous over-the-top cutscenes, which are a ton of fun. And I'm sure, this will be no exception. There's going to be a lot of very impressive sweat, I think. A lot of sweaty people, and I'm sure that, the team making the next Dead or Alive is probably also sweating because they probably want to make their fighters look equally sweaty.
I don't think I've played Tekken since Tekken 3, but I'm going to check out Tekken 8. I want to play an AI version of myself in a fighting game. Moving into February, we've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Just today, on the day that we're taping this, we found out that it's going to feature totally new cities that were not featured in the original PlayStation game. Max, with sort of a lack of any confirmed PS5 first-party exclusives in 2024 at this point, this is sort of the first big PS5 exclusive that PlayStation fans have to look forward to.
This is going to be a big one. They've said this is going to be a 100-hour RPG. This is a big, substantial chunk of something, and I think a lot of people with Remake, with the first chapter, felt that maybe it was kind of, we were being sold these things piecemeal. I can't help but feel like Remake was maybe a little bit, limited by the fact that it was a last gen game as well. In this case, it seems like they're really kind of going overboard on what they can do with the PlayStation 5, and the fact that this is the first PS5 game to come on 2 discs, which is really, I feel like, almost more of a novelty, more of a flex, that it's kind of a throwback to the original came on 3 discs. Like that was how big a game was back in the day when you looked at how many discs it came with, this definitely doesn't seem like it's slouching in that department. I'm very excited about this. Obviously, the first installment made a bunch of changes and it added a bunch of new material, but considering this is effectively an open world treatment of the overworld from the original, they're adding just a baffling, overwhelming amount of detail. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one too. And there's the latest Alone in the Dark, which comes to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on March 20th. This is not a reboot or recreation of the first game. It's a new installment, even though it's just called Alone in the Dark. And Ryan, I think our preview of this game recently was very positive.
Yeah, we've had a couple previews. Most recently, our final one where we actually got to play it, and this thing is shaping up really well by all accounts. And I feel like it's kind of under the radar right now, but it's probably gonna sneak up on everybody as the time approaches. I mean, it's been delayed a couple times as well, but this is a game that stars David Harbour from Stranger Things, so there's some star power here. And it's, Alone in the Dark has street cred. It is one of the first, it's kind of Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil are kind of the OGs in the survival horror department. And this kind of has a sort of 1920s aesthetic. It's got big name people in it, and it seems like it's shaping up rather well. So it'll be interesting to see if this kind of serves as a soft reboot to the whole franchise, because this isn't the first time. This might be the third game called just Alone in the Dark without a sequel number or subtitle on it.
I think they're framing this as a revival, specifically a Southern Gothic revival, which I think is a cute way of doing it. I could be mistaken here, but I believe it's an entirely new story, but the setting is based more closely on the house from the first game.
Right. You're definitely right about the Southern Gothic setting for sure. And so this one's going to be interesting to keep an eye on here as the year gets going.
Yeah, the performances from both David Harbour and Jodie Comer are supposed to be great. And then for the real hardcore fans, there's an option to toggle old school mode, which forces you to figure out what clues go to which puzzle and where all on your own without any sort of in-game hints. So I think that's one to keep on your radar for survival horror fans. Then just a couple of days later, March 22nd, we're going to get Dragon's Dogma 2. PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And this is Capcom's first $70 game. They're really trying to go big with this one. There was a Dragon's Dogma 2 showcase last month, which showed a giant foe called Talos, which is a giant statue who can destroy its surrounding environment. And then players can take out Talos by climbing around his body and striking weak points, like Shadow of the Colossus. Then there's other features highlighted, like a more robust character creator, a new trickster vocation, which sounds cool to me. It allows players to fight with illusions and provide buffs to your pawns, and it's intended to be made for those who prefer to sort of fight from the distance, maybe in the sidelines. So, I don't know. The first Dragon's Dogma was good. I think it took a while to kind of become a cult hit and find its following, but I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is kind of primed to be a big hit right out of the gate. What do you think, Max?
Definitely. I feel like there's a sizable audience of people who maybe when the original Dragon's Dogma came out were, in terms of open world RPGs, looking more towards stuff like Skyrim, and since then Dark Souls has kind of risen up, and Elden Ring left a lot of people really hooked on this kind of crunchier approach to action RPG fantasy gameplay. And if this is the scale of the first Dragon's Dogma, but and the difficulty, but higher fidelity, fleshed out a bit, I think we're in for some a very special treat here. The sort of the two big hooks that the first one had, for anybody who's not familiar, is one, it very much had this kind of Shadow of the Colossus kind of climbing to it. You could basically climb anything, including large cyclopses and chimeras and things, and do the thing where you climb up to their weak spot and stab them in the head. And anything that I think you couldn't climb, you could just pick up and throw, which I always thought was really funny. It had a kind of very, it was a little bit janky, but kind of awesome at the same time. The other big thing was the pawn system, where, kind of speaking of ghost AI, that type of thing, you basically created your own AI-controlled companions, and then other players could basically hire them out to play in their games. And so you would log off, or you're not even log off, you would just shut down for the night or whatever, and while you were off doing whatever else, your pawns would be off like elves in the night. They'd be off helping other people, and they would come back with items and experience, and it was just, I feel like, a very novel approach. The companions got a little bit, they occasionally got a little annoying. They just kind of parroted the same barks repeatedly, which again, a little bit goofy, but had its charm. So if it's more of that kind of balance of kind of cool epic fantasy with a little bit of goofiness on the side, I'm so there for it. And this is in the Resident Evil the RE engine, so looks great.
And I'll add too that if people want to see and learn more about Dragon's Dogma 2, then IGN, you might want to stay tuned to IGN as soon as the calendar flips to 2024.
I will stay tuned to IGN. Well, on the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2, if general fantasy with dragons, wyverns, and knights isn't your thing, there's also Rise of the Ronin, which is a combat-focused open-world action RPG where you play as a Ronin in ancient Japan. And this one is a PS5 exclusive. It's developed by Team Ninja and being published by Sony. And I think the main reasons to be excited for this one is that Team Ninja, they recently did Wolong Fallen Dynasty and Final Fantasy Origins Stranger of Paradise, which are both 8s. And then before that, they had Neo 2, which was a 9, and the original Neo was a 9.6 before we even went back to a 10-point scale. So Rise of the Ronin, big PS5 exclusive to keep an eye on. And then looking later into 2024, there's Black Myth Wukong, which has been a long time coming. PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on August 20th. And this is that epic action game inspired by the myth of the Monkey King with incredible visuals and creature design that you've no doubt seen footage of before. At Gamescom this year, we actually got to play it, and we found that its combat feels as good as it looks. We called it a fresh, energetic, and theatrical take on the action RPG, and said it's shaping up to be one of the most exciting action RPGs of the Souls-like era. Max, I know you're a fan of Souls-like in general. Is this one that you're looking forward to?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a weird case for Souls games because I like the creatures and I like the exploration, and the boss fights typically just frustrate me. Like I recognize that that's the appeal for a lot of people. If this game repeatedly kicks my ass, that could be a bit much. It's I guess our preview compared it to somewhere between Sekiro and Bloodborne, and Bloodborne is like one of my all-time favorite games, period. And then Sekiro is like the FromSoft game I bounced off of, and I know a lot of people have kind of similar sentiments. But I love the creatures in this. My point of entry to the Journey to the West, the myth that this is based on, is Dragon Ball, which that was also based on this. So if this has like sort of vaguely familiar themes and elements, like Ox Kings and talking pigs and desert bandits and stuff, that'll be kind of an interesting approach. But I mean, yeah, this is a relative unknown. This is a studio we're not super familiar with. The original tech demo blew everyone away, and I hope it's as good as it looks.
Yeah. I mostly just want to see all these weird creatures because
they're so gross.
Yeah,
I love them.
There's a lot of gameplay on this on IGN if people are curious.
Yeah, Ryan, there's a whole handful of Xbox exclusives we expect this year that don't have release dates. Let's begin with Avowed. This is a game that we sort of got fully revealed earlier this year, and there were mixed reactions, but I think the biggest reason to be excited for this is basically the pedigree of the developer. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this is Obsidian bringing a first-person fantasy role-playing game to the fore for all of us. And yeah, they've sort of laid out their scope of this and said, hey, this is not Skyrim. This is more on the sort of medium-sized scope that the Outer Worlds is. Speaking personally, that's totally fine with me because there are so many big, awesome RPGs coming that I would like time to play them all. So if it's 40 great hours, 30 great hours, I'm totally on board with that. I don't need it to be 100 necessarily, but yeah, the art style here has pivoted quite a bit from the original announcement teaser from back in, if I remember correctly, 2020. So it definitely has a new look to it now, but this is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. The Pillars games have all been super well received and been successful. So yeah, I think this is going to be a big game when it comes out, and I'm really curious how it's ultimately going to look and feel when we do get it in our hands, because it's purposely not Skyrim. Right. It is its own thing. So yeah, this is going to be probably the big exclusive RPG, at least on Xbox this year as far as exclusives go. There are a lot more in the hopper, from Clockwork Revolution to Fable to way down the path, Elder Scrolls 6. That there's no shortage of role-playing games coming to Xbox, but this should be the next one up. And yeah, Obsidian has a heck of a track record, and they've had plenty of time to work on this, so I have high expectations.
And then tell us what's happening with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024.
Well, if history proves out correct, it'll probably land somewhere around the middle of the year. Now, that's just completely me speculating. I don't actually know, but it would make kind of a good summer release, assuming that the sort of bigger, more core gamer titles, let's say, land in either the spring or the fall. But don't sleep on it. The tech in this is incredible. This was one of the first next gen only games for the Series X when the last flight simulator came out, and it is rendering the entire Earth, including real-time weather systems. It looks gorgeous doing so. You can fly anywhere over any city. You can fly over your own house. And, it's going to go bigger. It's going to add more aircraft. And yeah, this is one that it does, if you'll pardon the pun, fly under the radar. But this is a next-gen showpiece kind of game. And for the people that enjoy Microsoft Flight Simulator, this is going to be one of their biggest games of the year, because there's no reason to doubt that this won't be every bit as good as the last Flight Simulator was, which IGN gave a 10 out of 10 to, only packed with even more stuff.
Now they're adding skydiving. Oh my gosh. And then there are two really well-known quantities for Xbox, Hellblade 2 and Stalker 2. Ryan, we're just waiting on those release dates. Stalker 2, I think, is supposed to be in early 2024, right?
Yeah, Q1, as of their Gamescom showing, they had in their own press materials said Q1 2024. So my hope is that if there is an Xbox Developer Direct in January again this year, if Microsoft decides to make that a tradition after having a very successful debut Developer Direct this past January, then I'm hoping we might get a release date for Stalker 2 there. That's another Unreal Engine 5 game. The common thread of a lot of these games we're talking about, Daemon, is a number of them are Unreal Engine 5. We are actually starting to see UE5 games ship and look really, really good. So yeah, Stalker 2, and the pedigree of the developer. The first Stalker is a classic. It's a super highly scoring game. Highly praised. So this thing, we've known about it for a while. The developer, we all know the story by now. They've been, they're a Ukrainian developer that has had to genuinely fight for their lives. They've lost one team member in the war, in the invasion of Russia, the invasion by Russia. Yeah. So it's been an incredible human story to get this game done, and it's getting close now, and we'll all happily wait as long as we need to wait for them to get this done, with all of them being safe and sound as they do so. So hoping to find out more about this one pretty soon. And then as for Hellblade, that is the first officially announced next-gen game for Xbox. It was announced, as we all remember, alongside the console back at the Game Awards in 2019. And this is another one, Unreal Engine 5, and we just had a new gameplay trailer at this most recent Game Awards a couple weeks ago. It is looking spectacular, as we all knew it would and expected it would. And this is a game, like, I have no doubt this is going to be phenomenal. Like, this is one of those kind of no-doubters where you just know it's going to be fantastic, or at least it would be an incredible shock if it was anything less than phenomenal.
Yeah, it's looking, that sort of gameplay demo that we got a few weeks ago, looking super good. I can't wait to finally play that one. Max, one of my favorite game reveals of 2023 was Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft. We know it's supposed to be coming next year to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. A truly open world Star Wars game in a setting that I love, in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. I love the look of the game. I love the protagonist. I love the sort of stealth options that you have, and then the ability to just get into a spaceship and fly seamlessly out into the galaxy. I'm going to assume that you're excited for this one.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this is my corner of that galaxy. I love the scum and villainy. I love the bounty hunters and weird aliens and stuff like that. And this is set squarely between Empire and Jedi, which is, I think, a very special spot for a lot of Star Wars gamers, because that's when Shadows of the Empire was originally set back on the old N64. I can't help but feel like we're in sort of a weird spot that reminds me of the 90s a little bit, where we're getting no shortage of Star Wars shows, but movies are kind of in short supply these days. Right. But the games are great. Yeah. Like Jedi Survivor was phenomenal, and that kind of scratched that that original Jedi Knight itch. And if this is hitting some familiar sort of Shadows of the Empire bits, I'm into it. But also, it looks very Watch Dogs, which I'm extremely excited about too, because I love Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs Legion didn't really do it for me. I think it was trying too many different things. And this, I agree. I'm hoping that this manages to just again, like, Ubisoft they've gotten the whole sort of sandbox formula down. People fault them for being formulaic, but I think if you make it, Star Wars flavored, that does a lot of heavy lifting, because that's a galaxy people really care about, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there to play with.
Yep. And in general, I actually like the Ubisoft open world game formula. So
yeah, they're great, right?
Yep. Add some Star Wars, bring it on. All right, the 12th game that I picked for a current gen game to be excited for next year is... That's right, Truckton Extreme, everyone's favorite arcade shmup that was ported to TurboGrafx 16, and Sega Genesis is getting a new entry, and it is a PlayStation 5 exclusive coming next year. As a shmup fan, I'm honor-bound, there it is, I'm honor-bound to pick this as my most anticipated PS5 exclusive at this point. It
certainly looks Truxton packed.
It certainly is. Please be excited for Truckton Extreme. I know I am. There you have it, 12 current gen games not coming to PS4 or Xbox One next year. Although if you do look at the full list of game releases coming next year, there are still a lot of games coming to last gen consoles and Nintendo Switch. So if you haven't made the jump, you're not being left behind completely. Before we all settle off, run off into a little holiday break, we have the poll from last episode. We asked, what was the most next-gen game this year, in your opinion, the audience? And perhaps unsurprisingly, Spider-Man 2 was the winner with 32% of the vote. That was followed by Alan Wake 2, then Baldur's Gate 3. Then falling way off was Final Fantasy 16, Starfield, and then at the bottom, Forza Motorsport. But Ryan, as we've said before, that has probably a lot more to do with the fact that it's more of a niche game that not a lot of people played. Is that right?
Well, it's certainly, I wouldn't call it niche. It's just sort of maybe not the first game everybody thinks of when they think of, what were the biggest, prettiest games this year?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 is certainly going to be top of mind, and deservedly so. It's certainly, it didn't just look great by incorporating ray tracing, right into normal gameplay, but we've talked about the SSD tech of just zipping from one end of New York to another. It's a deserving winner in this poll for sure.
Sure, that's true. All right, and that is all the next-gen console watching that we are going to be doing this year. We're going to take the next week off, and then we'll be back in the new year with more console watching. And it seems like 2024, there's going to be lots of great games coming out, but also some hardware reveals and releases. We know we expect new Xbox consoles based on the big leak that happened a few weeks ago. There are rumors of the PS5 Pro, and I think everyone is finally expecting the new Nintendo Switch hardware in the back half of the year. So should be lots of exciting stuff to talk about. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with us this year. We're thrilled that we still get to keep doing this show so long after it was started way back in early 2020. Next year will be very exciting. Everybody have happy holidays, safe and happy holidays wherever you are, however you celebrate. Thanks to both Ryan and Max. Thanks to everyone working behind the scenes in our LA studio to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon, and we will see you next year.